Hi everybody and welcome back to Enjoy English with Mrs. A. I'm Mrs. A and this video is for the teachers out there. So I'm going to give you tips, all the necessary tips for you to make your way in the ESL industry and finally teach abroad. I've been an ESL teacher for the past 13 years now in Spain, and I taught English at the university. I worked with several academies, and ever since the pandemic, I decided to make my nook here on YouTube as well. Without further ado, let's get started. If you want to teach English abroad, make sure you make a list of your favorite countries and let the research commence. Naturally, do take into consideration if you speak any other language. Because if you speak Korean, for example, it would be much easier to teach in Korea than in China because you'll have the freedom to communicate, and that would be so much easier. For a North American or a non-EU citizen to be able to teach English in Europe, they usually have to work with a third party which will relocate them on a working visa, and most of the time through an auxiliary program. This means you'll be able to work in Spanish schools, but only through your intermediary. So normally that means you're going to be tied up to the company that brought you to Spain, and you won't be able to work with other companies. And please pay close attention to this because you have to know what waters you're swimming in before you start applying for jobs. Applying for a job without previously knowing if you're legally allowed to is as unprofessional as it gets, and you'll be wasting your time as well as your employers. So normally non-EU citizens have trouble working in Europe because the bureaucracy is crazy. All the paperwork is crazy. So you must make sure you are legally allowed to apply. And that happens if you work through an intermediary company. But wait, there are plenty of other ways you can work in Europe as a non-EU citizen with the same rights as any other. And that can happen if you have dual citizenship involving a country from the EU. Marrying an EU citizen, which therefore unlocks all the bureaucratic process. Applying for citizenship or nationality in the country of your choice. In my case, I was able to apply after 10 years of legal residence or 1 year after marriage with a Spanish citizen. Now, these two, in my case, happened to coincide. And now I'm, of course, a Spanish citizen. If you live in Spain, there's also something called pareja de hecho. So you can apply for that if you have a Spanish boyfriend or girlfriend. Pareja de hecho means declaring you have an official Spanish partner. It's not binding, it's not legally binding in any way, shape, or form, but it will grant you the permission to work in Spain like any other citizen. I recommend you research this one a little bit on your own because I don't have a lot of information on this front. But if you've decided to live your life in Spain and you have a Spanish partner, this could be the obvious choice for you. It's not like getting married or anything, it's just like declaring I have an official Spanish partner, and that's it. Don't know if this particular loop is also available in other countries, but it's worth looking into it. If you come from a European country and you want to work in Europe, Europe is your oyster. So let's say you've done your homework, you researched your top countries, and now you're ready to apply. Not yet. Step number 2 is looking up some Facebook groups according to your interests. Now, if you decided to teach English in Turkey, for example, you're going to go to Facebook and you're going to type right there, English teachers in Turkey, ESL in Turkey, teaching English in Turkey. You're going to find those groups and you're going to ask all the relevant questions about the paperwork, about the visas, about the wages, accommodation, and so on. Always try to speak with others who have been in your shoes before actually applying for a job. They're the ones that can give you the best possible tips. And step number 3, don't rely on language privilege if you're a native speaker. Speaking a language doesn't mean you can teach it. Most active companies in the ESL industry usually request a teaching certificate along with your resume. And that teaching certificate can be called CELTA if you have no previous teaching experience, Delta, to my understanding, if you have 5 years or more, TEFL, and so on and so forth. Like, these are the top ones in Europe. Independently, if you wish to teach English online or relocate to a foreign country, a respectable company will normally request a certificate. Sometimes even shady companies request them, and sometimes maybe you get lucky and nobody's going to request anything. But in any case, if you want to make teaching your career, you should definitely consider getting a certificate. All of these teaching courses can last from 3 months up to a year or a year and a half, depending on the modules you decide to take on, and also they're internationally recognized, at least in Europe, and I think some of them in China as well. Nevertheless, it wouldn't hurt asking on Facebook which certificate is favored in the country of your choice. Some of these courses can be completed online, and last time I checked, the price range is from $800 to $2,000. But if you're more familiar with a face-to-face teaching course, I recommend you Google it. So if you live in Russia, for example, type the certification, type your city, and you'll find the closest center, which will prepare you to become an ESL teacher. Now, when you reach step number 4, you probably narrowed that list to one lucky country, and that's what you should do, because it's pretty necessary for what I'm about to tell you. When I applied for a job in Spain, I sent my resume in both Spanish and English. Do not automatically assume that since you're applying for a job as an English teacher, the person on the receiving end will automatically be a native speaker. It's just not always the case, especially in Spain. So sending out your CV or your resume in both languages is common courtesy. Another thing I'd like to highlight on the resume front is that different countries have different protocols and different ways to structure the resume. So make sure you know exactly how to do yours. While adding a picture or personal information like your date of birth, your home address is completely forbidden in the UK. Spain welcomes all of these details, and they might find it strange if you don't have a picture or if your home address or year of birth is not there. Every country has a certain protocol when it comes to the resume. Just make sure you nail yours before submitting your application. And along with your cover letter, your resume, make sure to include the scanned copy of your teaching certificate, for example. I live and teach in Spain, so I know how things are done here. If you're planning on applying for a job in Spain, start applying at the end of August, beginning of September, because that's when academies normally start recruiting. And by all means, don't apply to a teaching job if you cannot commit to the school year. At least in Europe, the school year, the academic year, begins in September and ends in June. So make sure you're able to stay in that country for that time. Maybe other countries are more flexible on that front, but if you want to work in Spain, teaching English for 3 months, maybe that's not your best choice. And every academy has their own policy. The academy I work for example, EnjoyEnglish.es, is only interested in hiring people long-term. So they're very nice, they pay really well, I'm very happy working with them, but this is because I live here and they're interested in my profile because I'm a resident. So I'm married here, I have a mortgage, I have a home like everybody else, so I'm not going to leave Spain anytime soon. And this is the profile of teacher they're looking for. So we kind of matched. Other academies are especially interested in teachers who happen to hop from country to country and teach everywhere. If that's your case, make sure you mention it to your employer. And don't be shy to ask about your wage, at least if you're applying in Spain. Every employer should be able to tell you upfront, even over the phone or by email, what your wage is going to be before and after tax. And step number 5, ladies and gents, is getting familiar with the culture and the language long before you relocate. Sharing an apartment with locals is always fun to learn the language, and it actually helps with the integration. And with that said, I just want you to know that teaching is the best and most rewarding job I've ever had. It gave me purpose. It made me feel like I'm making a real change in the world. I rediscovered myself. I found love. So it was totally worth it for me, and I wouldn't change it for the world. It's a bold step. It's a big change. But if you want to do this right, just remember the steps and remember to look into it and research before you apply. Don't just come up with an average resume and start sending it everywhere. Make sure you're legally allowed to work in said country before you apply. And if you really have your heart set on a specific country, there are intermediaries, platforms, companies that will do all that for you. So if you got your heart set on a certain country, let me know down in the comments. If you're already teaching abroad, I want to know your experience. Thank you so much for watching this. I'm Mrs. A, and I hope you'll check out my channel for videos you can send your students as homework. Love you all. Thank you.